Hey everyone, Andrew here, and it's time for another What the Heck Was That? And this is the film that I mentioned or alluded to when I did Baby Cat, the first of this series. This is the film that made me go, I I want to talk about it, but I can't really say it's a film that I'm fighting the hate for because I haven't heard anyone talk about this film other than a brief mention of it, and definitely I've seen no one really review it, and it's not one I can say is a spreading the joy, because it's not one that's like I think is underknown or underappreciated. I also can't really say it's necessarily a good film, but it is a film that just left me going, what the heck is Meet the Feebles? Meet the Feebles! Meet the Feebles! This is just a weird film in general. So this is a film that was made in 1989. It is a musical black comedy that is about a dark version of like the Muppets. And it's directed by Peter Jackson. You know, the guy from Lord of the Rings. And it's like, even from Peter Jackson's standpoint, like this is a weird one in his filmography. Because everything else that he's done has a little bit of a horror element. You had Bad Taste, you had Brain Dead, you had Heavenly Creatures, you had The Frighteners. Like, all of those have horror elements into it. And then just in the middle of all those, you have Meet the Feebles. And it's like, what? Why? Why is this here? It's just this insane, weird film. Because it's not the only film that is a, satirical, dark version of, like, the Muppet shows. But it is the most unique. Because I'm like, that we've had things like Happy Time Murders and The Hug and things of that nature. But Meet the Feebles really does kind of feel like a twisted, horrible version of the Muppets. Like, if the entire thing went off the rails and everyone in that show started doing drugs and wanted to do that is sort of what, like, Meet the Feebles is. This is a film that is kind of known and kind of not. It's not quite as obscure as the first one I did in the series with Baby Cat, because that one was fairly new, whereas this came out back in 1989. But it is a film that, weirdly, not a lot of people have reviewed or talked about on YouTube. I only found one other person that talked about this. And when I saw this film, I knew I had to talk about it, because there's a lot to talk about in this, because it is just kind of insane. And it's a film where, like, the story of it is actually fairly simple to break down, because there's not much of one here. There is a story, but a lot of it is just random little things that have nothing to do with it or anything. The story is, like, the Feebles are a variety hour show, and they're about to get ready to do a new hour-long special for television. The star of the show is a hippopotamus woman named Heidi, and she is got a beautiful singing voice and is really artistic and wants to create a good show and, delve into art. And she ends up getting into an argument with the director, who is this weird rat named Trevor. She gets mad and says, he's here and he's chastising me, I'm not doing the show. So she goes to complain to the boss of the area, who is also her lover, is a walrus named Belch. And Belch is one of the worst beings I have ever come across in any film, because he's just absolutely awful from the get-go. There's not a single redeeming feature about him in any way. Like, literally, the first thing we see him do is cheating on Heidi with his secretary, who is the Siamese cat. Manages to not get caught, even though Heidi's, like, knocking on the door. And Heidi's like, I'm not going to work with him in this show, I can't do this. And Belch, consoles her, and he's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it, everything will be fine, you just go, and I will deal with Trevor and his thing. So Heidi's happy about it, and she goes off and has a run, and then Belch immediately leaves the theater and goes and has a drug deal in the middle of a golf course after playing a couple rounds of golf, because he's also a mob boss and a criminal, and is, shooting pornos in the basement, which is what Trevor's in charge of doing. Heidi comes back from her run. She runs into the secretary cat, who verbatim is like, he doesn't love you, he wants to be with me, you're just this fat cow he doesn't want anything to do with. Which causes, Heidi to start crying and sobbing. She runs to her room and is threatening to leave again. Belch returns, goes back to his office, finds out that these drugs are not actually any good, so he's like, okay, we're gonna go and kill the people that gave us these bad drugs. As he's leaving, he's stopped by one of the stagehands who's like, Heidi's in her room, she's not gonna leave, she's threatening to leave the show. He's like, I'll go deal with it. He goes and talks to her, tells her he loves her and wants, it's like, it's all for her, it's all gonna be great, he would never cheat on her, and then basically makes her go down on him. And then he leaves and goes and kills all the people that he had the drug deal with, and ends up running into the boss of the area, who is named Mr. Big, who is a literal sperm whale. And Mr. Big's like, do you really think you can get away with all this? And Belch is like, yes, I do. And has his driver drive their car into the whale and out the back end, killing the whale. And it's like, okay. So the show starts, and it's going off without a hitch, and Belch goes to his office, and Heidi is there, and basically naked, and it's like, I want to have sex with you, this and the other. And Belch just looks at her and goes, why would I want to have sex with a fat old slog like you? And kicks her naked out of his office. She is devastated, goes to her room, gets a rope, tries to hang herself, but the running joke is that she's fat, so she breaks through the floor, and the rope breaks without killing her. She then goes back to his office, which he has left because he is now out in the audience watching the show, and she finds this M16 machine rifle and is fighting the urge to shoot herself with it when the Siamese cat assistant shows up and is like, bad mouthing, it's like, you won't do it, you're not brave enough, you're too much of an old, he doesn't love you, da, 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 da. And Heidi just snaps, spins the gun, and shoots the cat girl, then picks the gun up and starts going down the hallways, shooting anything that moves, very much the T-800 in the original Terminator at the police station, just mowing down everything. Gets to the stage, shoots some of the audience, shoots a bunch of the staff, shoots this one chicken lady who is just trying to protect her kid, and then finally sees Belch up in his balcony seat. Shoots him, but but only in like the leg area, so he's still doing all right. He tries to tell her again, I forgive you, I understand, I still love you, we can still make this work. So she, believing him, puts down the gun and starts to cry when Trevor shows up behind her and shoots her in the back with his gun. Belch is like, kill her! Kill her! Do it now! And Trevor's about to do it, but he is tackled by Robert the Hedgehog, who is one of the only good characters in the show. Tackles Trevor, giving Heidi enough time to pick up the rifle, shoot Trevor, turn, stick the gun in Belch's mouth, and blow his brains out. She then puts the gun down, looks at the stagehand, and says, can you play Garden of Love, please? Which is the song that she sang about Belch when she first met him, and she sings the song as the cops roll in to arrest her. And we get those in-credit pictures where it's like, this person went on to do this, and this person went on to do that. And it gets to Heidi, and she's like, she spent 10 years in a woman's prison, and then was released for good behavior, and is now living a happy life under a whole new name. And that's how the film ends, and you're like, she only got 10 years for murdering like 17 people? Like, she should at least be like in a mental asylum for like for the rest of her life or something. Like, jeez Louise, that's a really feels like a light sentence for multiple murders. They did say she got rehabilitated, but like, it wasn't like she went to a psych ward and is now cured. That's just the actual plot of the film. Like, there's a lot in the film. Most of it is pointless filler and pointless stuff that doesn't have much to do with the main plot. The whole thing with Belch and him being this criminal who's also, who's running this show, which is probably some sort of scam, also running pornos in the basement, also being a drug dealer, also being a murderer, and like, he's just the worst character. There's a point in this where there's like, he comes across this fish guppy guy who's like, hey, I want to be a part of the show. He's like, oh, hey, you want to audition? Do you have a song? Yeah, sure. And so the fish starts singing, and Belch just reaches over, grabs him, and shoves him in his mouth and swallows him whole. Only then later on in the film gets sick and throws him up, and the fish is like half decayed body, half eaten, and it's just like, did I get the part? Am I part of the show? Ugh. And it's just a whole bunch of weird little gross things like that. You have Robert the Hedgehog, who's the one other good character in the film. And he's basically brand new to the show, just got added into the chorus. He starts having this interest and relationship with this woman in the chorus, and, confesses his feelings for her, and they start having connections. But Trevor, who's been running the pornos in the basement, needs a new star for his pornos, and he has his eyes on that girl. And so he drugs her drink and is about to drag her downstairs to be part of the show, but gets caught by Robert. But Trevor plays the whole thing off like, oh, your girl was fun. I had a lot of fun with her. Emotionally damages Robert, and he's like, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. And only at the very end of the film, during the gun shootout, does he swoop in and saves the girl right before Heidi shoots her. And he's like, I don't care what you did with Trevor. I love you and I want to be together. And she's like, nothing happened with Trevor. He drugged me. It was all him. Which is why he swoops in to knock out Trevor to save Heidi in the end, because he wants to get revenge on Trevor for drugging the girl that he likes. You also have this elephant man who has been seeing this chicken woman who now has a baby and is trying to get him to take care of the baby, and he keeps claiming the baby is not his, despite the fact that the baby is a half chicken, half elephant hybrid and has his exact same face. And he's like, it's not mine, it's not. But then the chicken mom gets shot down during the ending credits, and the elephant right in front of the baby. Like, literally, she's trying to protect the baby, and she gets shot down in front of the baby. And Heidi turns the gun on the baby, and the elephant just like, down my boy, and runs in. Heidi shoots both of his kneecaps, and he collapses, but he manages to get his kid and protect his kid. And they get one of the happily ever after credits where it's like, he and his son now go run a farm that is not doing financially well. And that's his happy ending. There's also this rabbit that has been sleeping around with like half the cast, and now went to a doctor and is like, oh, you have the disease. You have the sexually transmitted disease. You are going to die not in days, in hours. You will probably not make it through the night. And the rabbit wants to just do the last show and go out, as the star that he thinks of himself is, and doesn't want anyone to find out. Meanwhile, there's this literal giant fly going around through the backstage area trying to get dirt on any of the cast that he can publish for his trashy magazine, and finds out about this while literally eating a piece of poop on screen. And immediately goes and tells the world and has it published that night. Like, this entire film takes place over the course of less than a day, like 14 hours at most. Belch finds out about this slander against his star and doesn't like that, so he finds the fly guy, who is still in the backstage area, rips the fly's wings off, and then shoves him in a toilet and flushes him down the toilet. And then it all turns out that the bunny doesn't have, the sexually transmitted disease. He just has a really bad case of bunny flu. So the entire thing was just there for the sake of being there. You also have this knife thrower who is a Vietnam vet who is a drug addict now because he's trying to deal with the fact that he was a POW and left his friend to die to save himself. And he gets super high right before the show and ends up throwing a knife into his own head. And this is a musical, by the way. Not extremely. I honestly forget the fact that it's a musical, because there's only a couple songs. There's a Meet the Feebles song. There's a One Leg Missing song. And then, at a certain point in this film, there's just a song called Sodomy.
You must think it very odd of me that I enjoy the act of sodomy. I agree But you enjoy the act of sodomy.
Stage director of the show is like, I really want to do this song. It's a great hit number about how it's okay to do sodomy. And even Belch, this horrible human being, went, that is a bad idea. We are not putting that on stage. But then all of the acts are either dead or are not incapacitated as the show goes on, so he has to perform the sodomy song. Like, what the heck? Ugh. And that's a lot of this film is just gross, sick humor for the sake of gross, sick humor that isn't even funny, like, at all. It's just gross and sick for that sake. Like, there's puppets throwing up, there's puppets pissing on things, there's puppets dying in gruesome ways. Like, not even just the gunning down thing. There's a scene where these 4 little, like, hairball things just get rolled over by a barrel and hardcore squished into meat patties. Such an insane thing, because it just... Nothing about this screams Peter Jackson. He's never really directed a comedy. He's directed horror films that have comedic moments in them, like Brain Dead and The Frighteners. But, like, a straight-up dark comedy like this just is so weird. And I get that there's multiple versions of Peter Jackson. This is just, like, his own weird little side spin-off thing that probably shouldn't exist at all. Like, it's insane. And this was originally meant to be a television show. But then the Japanese people behind it were like, hey, let's put in more money, let's make this a film. And it's not a film that did well, but it is a film that got decent ratings. Like, it has like a 71% on Rotten Tomato, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad rating, but I wouldn't necessarily give it that rating, because the majority of the film is not good. The first hour of it is, like, terrible. Just gross, stupid characters, stupid scenes, badly written, nothing really connecting anything. It is only once the actual show within the show starts, and and Heidi gets that gun, does this film actually become kind of amazing. Like, that ending is just so insane and so over the top. Like, even if I showed you the poster, would you think this is how this film ends? Like, I would not think that this is how the film ends. I would think this was like a dream sequence or them making fun of an action film. I would not think this is main girl goes on a killing spree. There's also one random thing I have to talk about, because I found this when I was looking through information on this movie, and it's really weird. So there was a brand new Muppet show that just came out in 2023 called Muppets Mayhem, which was about the band within the Muppets. And they literally, for an episode, brought in Peter Jackson, and he's talking to Floyd Pepper, one of those guys, and they're like, oh, hey, Peter, we haven't seen you since that night at Wellington's when we met the Feebles. And Jackson's like, yeah, and then it's like, well, when it comes to the Feebles, like, 2 are in witness protection, the rest are in prison. And it's like, wow, because that means the Feebles could exist in the Muppet universe. Jeez. Like I said, we've had other puppet-themed films, but I don't think any of them ever went as hardcore as this. And that is sort of what makes this film watchable and recommendable to an extent. Like, I don't think it's a good film, but at the same time, the film is also kind of intriguing. Like, it's just so weird, but some elements of it are so interesting and put together. Like, some of the puppets look really, really good. Like, all of the big person puppets are all actually really solidly made. And then a lot of the little ones is where you get some of the weird, iffy, like, some of them look like they went through a fire before this film started. It is Peter Jackson doing an R-rated, raunchy, vulgar Muppet film. That's insane. It's one of those things, like, if you're a film fan, you kind of need to see that just to know what it is. And the fact that there's not a lot of people that have reviewed this is insane to me. I'm amazed this hasn't already been covered by, like, Cinema Snob and the Nostalgia Critic and even, like, Honest Trailer guys. Like, this feels like something that should have more reviews on it, because it's just insane from start to finish. Peter Jackson's films of those times had elements of these things. Like, I just watched Brain Dead for the first time like a month ago, and that one is so insane and over the top, but it actually works and makes sense and is well put together, whereas this is just really not. I will say it is probably on par with the film he did right before this, which was Bad Taste, which is not a film. I couldn't even finish Bad Taste. I just could not stand watching it. So I'm glad he went on to do much better things, because, like, Brain Dead is really good. Frighteners is amazing. The original Lord of the Rings is amazing. And this is just that weird, why did you do this, in his entire filmography. And gotta give a little bit of praise for that. He really swung for the fences with this one. It's not a film that I can recommend at all. But if, like I said, if you are a film fanatic, if you are someone who doesn't mind watching a film that's a little bit crazy and a little bit gross and doesn't really work for the majority of it, but has an ending that just kind of blows you out of the water, this film is going to be in my brain probably forever. Like, I am never going to forget what happened to Mr. Big the Whale. I am never going to forget, Heidi going down those hallways, gunning down all the Muppets. It is an insane watch that you just kind of have to see to believe. But that's just my opinion. What do you all think? Have you seen this film? Have you even heard of this film? Let me know your thoughts. Happy watching, happy reading. I will see you all next time. Bye.